was there last night and going through his Twitter timeline, mop towels all over the floor. Water keeps coming through. He said at 4:30 he was there and didn't think much of it. So a bizarre situation last night that I guess we got to preface, Bob, that we've tried to say the Sixers do not operate or run that building. So it makes them kind of look like this was on them, but they don't have anything to do with that building. They no longer are an owner of that building. They are just a tenant.
Yeah, no, that's right, Mike. That's what they are, and Scott O'Neal was very good at reminding us of that after the game was called off. But yeah, it is unfortunate. It's just it's something that you can't control. Someone made a mistake somewhere. The building was obviously really, really hot, and I think that was probably melting the ice underneath, and it was starting to seep up through the screws that hold the wooden panels in place. So it was just, it got to be about 5:45, 6 o'clock, and I was just thinking, there's no way. I don't care if you get this cleaned up. I don't know. That's you don't want to put players out there with the possibility of serious injury. So I thought they made the right call, but you're right. The Sixers had nothing to do with it, but that's who the onus kind of falls on.
Yes, it does. So at 4:30, you're there, regular shoot around. What's happening? I mean, at what point do the players start to notice that, hey, something's not right here?
Yeah, it was weird. So I do the same thing. I get there about 4 o'clock. I leave the media room about 4:30 to go out onto the floor and watch the players warm up and talk to some people and all. And I saw a guy going down the sidelines with squeaking his sneakers on the floor to see what it felt like, and then somebody following him with a towel. So I didn't think anything of it. I didn't know that earlier in the day Sacramento at their shoot-around had problems, because I was at the Sixers shoot-around over in Camden earlier in the day. So went into the locker room. We talked to Brett Brown at 5:15, went into the locker room, talked to some people. I came out of the locker room probably around 5:45 or so, and I saw people out there mopping away, went back in the locker room. We get kicked out at 6:15, came out, and then I noticed seemed like there was a pretty serious problem. So that's when I started asking questions and they started taking the players kind of off the floor, and players wouldn't shoot from certain spots. So, yeah, you could tell that there were some major problems going on.
At what point was it evident? Like you said, at 4:30, you didn't see much. It didn't, hit you much. But at what point did it seem evident this game's not happening?
Yeah, well, at like 6:15 when I went out there, Robert Covington was standing over in one corner, and he was going to take shots, but he kept stopping and wiping his feet, and he's pointing down to it, and you could tell that spot was really bad. And then I'm walking right near the team bench. A lot of us kind of gather there, and you just talk to people, like I said, and you can put your hand on the floor, or you could wipe your foot across the floor, and you could you could feel it. It was slick. It just wasn't good. So kind of kept hanging around. I noticed they wouldn't let the players come out, and then officials came out and were looking to see what was going on, and Tiger Woods just hit his drive into the sand. But people were milling around, and you could just tell something was seriously wrong. So then the players came out. We were all just standing, and I was talking to a few of the players, and Nick Stauskas came over to me, and right in front of me, and I said, "What do you think?" He said, "I wouldn't play on this. No way." And it was just really bad. You could feel it, you could see it, and it was like damp inside the place. The face of my phone, when I went to slide across it, was damp. So there was just like a humid feeling in the arena. Something just wasn't right. It was very hot. At one point, you could feel all of a sudden the air come on and the temperature dip a couple of degrees. So something couldn't get figured out or wasn't working. And they made the best decision that they could. There's no way you wanted those guys on the floor.
Bob Cooney with us as he was there last night for the game that wasn't. The Sacramento Kings and the Sixers postponed because of condensation or moisture on the surface. And, Bob, you've been around the game a long time, a.k.a. the sports writing game. And I was talking to Mike earlier about the fog in Buffalo in the 70s, and Mike brought up the turf that malfunctioned at the Vet for the Eagles-Ravens. So where does this go? Where does this go in the lore of, wow, that really happened? Where do you rank this in the, wow, that happened?
It's up there. I mean, we've seen a lot. We've seen the Fog Bowl, but that was completed, the Fog Bowl. I'll tell you what. In 2001, I was covering a Flyers preseason game, and this was kind of really amazing. But I was covering a Flyers preseason game. They were playing the Rangers. First 2 periods of the game, I think it was first 2 periods, there was fights galore. I mean, it was just one of those nights where you had guys that weren't going to make the team, and they were just pounding each other, fights all over the place. Well, between the second and third period, it was right after 9/11. President Bush came to make an announcement to the nation about where this country was moving forward, and they showed it on the Jumbotron. And the players stopped. It was between periods. The players stopped their warm-up. They sat on the benches. They sat on the board. Everybody sat in silence and watched the president make his speech, which probably lasted 10, 15 minutes. The players simultaneously got up, went to center ice, all shook hands, and just left. I mean, it was no more time to play hockey with what was going on in this country. And that was something that stuck with me and will for the rest of my life as far as games that never were completed.
How many lights were on when you walked in? If you remember, like at the old Spectrum days, or for ice hockey games for sure, they turn the lights off when they resurface the ice for a reason. I mean, they're trying to buy any amount of cool that they can, and I've described this as a cool on the bottom, hot on the top. Tons of humidity outside. When you walked into the building, did you immediately notice that it was warmer than normal?
Yeah, you could. You could tell that it was warm, but. Like I said, I went out there, and then I go into like a back area and into the locker room and stuff. So I didn't notice it that much. I thought it was warm, and I thought maybe that's why they were wiping up. But then when I came back out at like that 15 area, it was really, really hot. I when I was talking to some of the players, I took my hands and I just said, "Look at this!" Like, I mean, those guys are obviously sweating, but I said, "Look at my hands!" Like my hands were sweaty. It was that warm. So. Something malfunctioned or somebody didn't do something properly, and it's a shame. It's a horrible shame for fans, for little kids who probably it may have been their only game that they were going to get to. That's the real sad part of it. But the Sixers will go out of their way to reimburse, give tickets to another game, and then another game after that. So they'll do what needs to be done as far as that goes, making their fans happy. But I've seen this happen in high school. I've seen it happen at college games. I've never seen it in a professional game.
Yeah, Bob Cooney with us. Something malfunctioned or someone malfunctioned. So did you get to the bottom? Did anybody get to the bottom of who's responsible for this? Did anybody solve that mystery?
No, they said they were gonna look into it. John Page is the president of Wells Fargo Center complex. He came out and spoke and said that they'll dive into it. They'll find out exactly what happens. It could be something as simple as you set a temperature. You want the place to be at a certain temperature, and maybe something malfunctioned there, and it was a lot. Maybe it was reading that it was cooler than it was. I don't know. I don't want to pretend to know. But whatever happened, it was something that. The decision had to be made, and I thought that as early as 6 o'clock that there's no way you can let professional athletes go out there and try to play on this type of surface.
Well, Bob, there was almost a game, and in that game you would have got to see 4 extra minutes of Joel Embiid. Now, why is that significant? They had said they were not going to revisit this until Christmas. So why a warm December evening did they decide 4 extra minutes for Joel?
Mike, I don't know. I really don't. I can't figure this out any more than you can. And they keep coming out and telling us that this is it's a defined process, and they are reevaluating every day, and they keep an eye on Embiid and exactly what he does and how his recovery is. But then they'll come out and say something like he's going to go 24 minutes up until Christmas, and then you scratch your head and you say, well, if it's a daily thing that you're checking on, how can you say something that far out in advance? And then they come back and say, no, now he's up to the 28 minutes, and then it's just mind-boggling. I don't understand it. These sports science guys are figuring all out, and they're doing everything. They're doing their due diligence. I don't think Brett Brown understands it, but when they give him 4 extra minutes a quarter for Joel Embiid, and now it's up to 28, like he said last night, he takes it and he runs and he doesn't ask any questions.
Sure, absolutely. As we would all probably do the same. I mean, obviously he's frustrated. I mean, he punted the chair almost last week. Luckily, he missed with that, and it was his opposite foot there, but he's frustrated. He gets those 4 extra minutes, and they're big. I mean, they've had a couple of overtime games where they haven't been able to use them. I mean, they went over the minute limit a couple of times. So obviously he's frustrated. I know Brett's probably, if he had the chance to just lash out and say what he wants to say, I'm sure he would not be too happy. But I want to get your take on this Noel thing. 87ers recalled. How far away is he, and what's his role when he's good to go? And with Embiid, obviously.
Yeah, I think he's probably still a couple of weeks away. Like when guys come back and stuff from their recovery. Like he had surgery, so he went down to Alabama to recover from that. Well, that's getting the knee stronger. Now it's the whole process of getting back in basketball shape. So I think he might be 10 days, a couple of weeks still away from that. And then, that's the big question. It was the big question over the summer. What do you do with these 3 guys? How do you play them? But Brett Brown has to figure it out, and he has to do it, because if you're going to trade one of these guys, people around the league want to see them on the floor. They want to see Nerlens Noel back on the floor. He's the procedure that he had was on the knee that he tore his ACL on his left knee when he was in college. So they want to make sure he's totally healthy, both mentally and physically. And they want to take a look at them, and they want to take more a look at Joel Embiid to see if maybe he's the piece that you want. So Brett Brown has to get these guys on the floor. He's going to have to figure out how to do it, and probably doing it for other teams as much as he's doing it for his own.
Wild stuff around the Sixers. Bob Cooney from the Philadelphia Daily News was there last night and spent a couple of minutes with us. And real quick, any update on Ben Simmons? Because we did read that Brett basically said he's going to play point when he comes back, and he had kind of didn't come all the way out and said, yeah, we would like the ball in his hands. But was that something that raised the eyebrows?
No, not really. I mean, I think that's kind of obvious. They want the ball in his hands. As soon as that ball passes midcourt, boom, it's going to Ben Simmons' hands. That's when they're bringing the ball up the floor, not on a fast break, maybe after a made basket. I just envision, just like they did in the summer league, ball gets in Ben Simmons' hands and he facilitates right after the ball comes across midcourt. So, the ball will be in his hands mostly. Now you have to find the right combination of point guard to go with that. Like, you can't have a ball-heavy point guard if Ben Simmons is going to be dominating the ball. You need a point guard that can cover the other point guard defensively, but can facilitate some offense, or not facilitate, can be a part of the offense in a different way. Like, it has to be a guard that can come off picks and maybe hit spot-up jump shots, hit long-range shots, hit some shots like getting off of picks, setting some picks. You need a really smart and active offensive player at that point guard, because he's not going to be with the ball in his hands. So maybe Jared Bayless is the model that they're looking at. Maybe he's the type of guy that they wanted. But I don't know how much you're going to see him this year. That wrist, he has torn ligaments in it. They suggested he get surgery, but said that if he did, he would be out for the season. He's decided not to do that. But, it's so sore now he can't get on the floor. So it's, once again, one puzzle piece comes in and another one gets taken out, it looks like.
Yeah, he looked like he was adding something to that team in limited time. All right, Bobby, get back to Tiger. He looks like he's about to size this putt up here.
We're watching too, pal. We're watching too.
It's fun. It's fun watching Tiger back on the golf course. You have to admit that. Whether you love him or hate him, it's fun to see him back out there.
And by the way, the Sixers, they get the new PR guy, Dave Schaller, and he's got to already put out fires right off his first course of duty. Get in there, put out fires for this building. So
I said it to him last night when we were standing on the floor. Welcome to the Sixers, Dave.
All right, Bobby, take care.
All right, guys. See you.